Hello everyone and welcome to episode 7 of CiviCRM.Tea. Just doing a quick check with the guys to see if they can hear me. So today we're going to, we plan to show some of the additional features with Zoom and CiviCRM integration. So we'll be going. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just see. So we'll be going through some of the features that we've added recently. There isn't anyone viewing, so I'm just waiting for a couple of people to join in and just get confirmation that we're all good. Okay, cool. So we're all good and you can hear us. So let's start again. So episode 7, COVID response, second one. So we did a Zoom one in episode 4 of how you can connect CiviCRM to Zoom. And how you can get your event registrations going in from Zoom to just messing about with that. Let's get that right. How you can get your event registrations that come into CiviCRM to go to Zoom automatically, and how that works with using Civi rules and some of the features around that. So what we're going to do today is just show you how you can upgrade to the latest one, latest extension. The extension has some extra features around. So I'm just reading the messages. So so the new version 2.1 has some additional features around updating participant status. So that was actually there before, and I didn't demonstrate it because we never quite had the time to get that far, but I'll try and show you how that works this time. And also there's a new feature that one of our clients needed, Digital 10, which was to email people from Civi to event organizers, really, to email them a list of delegates. So anybody that recently subscribed to the event, registered for the event. Now that sounds like you could just do that using a Civi report, but there's instances where people would register directly on Zoom, so they wouldn't be in Civi, and it's not always correct to automatically bring people from Zoom into Civi because you might not want them there. There might be different types of contacts. They might be members of an organization and you don't necessarily want those coming in. There might be duplicate issues. Do you do an update? What do you do? So you could get an integration to work, but it's quite a lot of work to make it happen automatically. If you're running, I mean, again, it depends on the type of event. If you're running big webinars with thousands of delegates, then yes, potentially you just want it to automatically come in. The easiest way to do that would just be export out of Zoom and import into Civi. But if you're running slightly smaller, more targeted events, you might not want that to happen because you don't necessarily have the authority to bring that information into Civi anyway if they didn't register through Civi, because that person hasn't accepted the data policies, etc., for your organization necessarily. But also, like I said, there's issues around where do you put them, what type of contact they are. Is it an update? Is it new contacts, etc., etc. You can just see my dog over my other shoulder. He's being very needy today, so you might see him up close and personal throughout this session. So let's see how we get on. So going back to that, so we've got that feature which kind of registers, emails out new registrations. Now you can't really do that from Zoom easily because I think the way Zoom's workflows are set up is it's up to the event organizer. They're the only ones that can receive or set up or something. There's some funny rule about it. We're not Zoom specialists necessarily, but that's the feedback we've had from Zoom users, that it's not the easiest thing to get reports coming out of there for contacts who are not in Zoom necessarily. So our users not there. So getting out of Civi gives us a bit more scope, if you like. So we could, for instance, we could do a combined list of what's coming out of Civi and what's coming out of Zoom into a single list, so you can kind of see where you're at. So anyway, those are the two features. So I'll be hopefully showing, I say that because as usual, we're pushed for a bit of time and I've not necessarily had the full time to go through this properly, but I'll go through what we have, and then we can see how it works and try and follow the README. And I'll be doing things exactly as you would be as a CiviCRM consultant stroke administrator. So we try to keep the sessions like that, exactly like your experience will be. Okay, doke. So let's have a look. So right, so you can see my screen there. This is not accurate anymore. Let's go back a step. Oh, yes it is. So I've got my demo CiviCRM set up as usual. I'm just going to go in and just see what extensions I've got. So I've got the Civi rules actions for Zoom 0.2. So just as of today, like I say, this is all just in time stuff. We have released a 2.1 now. We will connect it up to Civi so that it automatically pulls into the CiviCRM extensions in the next few days, maybe next week or so. But at the moment, like I say, it's a pull from the repo. So there is a 2.1 out, but I've got installed at the moment. I've got 0.2, so a very early version. So if I just show you what the early version looks like, then you'll see. So we've got the webinar and the meeting, no account details, no lookups. The Zoom settings are basic, no account, again, no lookups, no test button. So this is like an early adopter version that I've got here. So the newer version, so I'm going to upgrade it to the newer version and then reconfigure it a little bit because some of the settings have changed and they're in different places. So I'll show you how to do that. And then we'll go into the scheduled jobs and just see what they are and how you configure them. I might not necessarily be able to actually get them to fire because I don't have any live Zoom events that I can really test it with. But the idea is I'll show you how you would set it up, and then if you do that, it should all work. So let's focus on that side of things. So let's just go through the upgrade and make sure that all happens nicely. So to get the upgrade, I would normally go down to the release, and then from the release I can get the URL for the zip file. Now I've already got my notes here, so I'm just going to use my notes. Not necessarily want to show them. So I've got my notes there, and I've got my server thing majig. Just make sure I'm in. Yeah. So I'm getting 2.1. So I've got my 2.1 there now. Let's go back. Like I said, I just do this because it's easier to rather than trying to. So I've unzipped my 2.1. There's my folder now with everything in it. I say I'm doing everything as root because let's see this. So what I'm doing now is I'm moving the existing Zoom extension that I've got. So this is the existing one, and the new one is here on my root directory. So I'm moving the existing one off to the temp directory because I don't want it. I don't want it there because I'm going to upgrade it in effect. So I want to replace it with the 2.1. So I'm just going to do that. So I'm renaming the 2.1 one to the current, or to the generic name, and that's to make sure that Civi's paths and stuff are not kind of getting confused by what I'm up to. You could symlink it. There's 100 different ways to do this stuff, but I'm trying to keep it simple because like these are throwaway demo machines, and you know, the more complex you make it, the harder it is to follow. So now I've copied the so I renamed the 2.1 to a neutral naming convention. I've copied it over to the extension directory. So now the new one, the upgraded version is there. I'm just going to make sure that everything's owned by Apache in the extensions directory because I'm logged in as root. I don't really want it. I don't really want stuff in as root. Okie doke. So let's go back to our extensions. Where are we? Just going to close that to stop me getting confused. So now we're on 2.9, and I'll come into the set of some updates. So whenever you update an extension, Civi, what's that? Civi should prompt you for execution of updates if there are some available. So I'll run that. Okie doke. So that's all fine. That's all good. All right. What else do I want to do? So one thing that's missing out of here that we kind of noticed when we were running stuff is the menu rebuild is not in there. So that's something we'll add in. So as part of the upgrade, it does a menu rebuild, but for now I just need to manually fire one. It's good practice anyway. Anytime you change stuff, you do things, it's good practice to do a menu rebuild, as it clears all the caches out, clears things out, and you're making sure that you're kind of running what you think you're running. Sometimes you can run an update, do something, and you're still running an old version in areas or not quite updated because you didn't run the clear of the caches, so it's still picking up some old templates or things like that. So this way we're forcing the system to reset itself. Sorry, my phone is going. Let me just take that off. Okay, so where are we? Yep, so I've upgraded the extension. We're all good. So now if I go into Zoom settings, so my settings page is totally changed now. So I need to add in a Zoom account. So that's the first thing I'll do, because this version of this version of the extension allows multiple Zoom accounts in the same implementation. So I've got my API credentials and stuff there. And I've got my secret, and I'm going to call it my okie dokie. So I've saved that now. I've got my green ticks to say that it's connected. So that means the API credentials I provided are all good. And we went through this in detail in the initial implementation, or the episode 4. So you can always refer back to that if you want to get into more detail. So again, with the new version, I need a field for the Civi account ID. So I'm just going to go ahead and create another custom field. So let's get into my custom field. So there's my, don't know who's put that in, Zoom notes. Oh yeah, the extension adds that in, so I'll explain that in a minute. So this field is going to hold the Zoom account ID that we're using for that event, and then the relevant webinar or meeting ID. So it kind of ties the two together. Okie doke. So we're done with that. So I've got my thing. So this new one gets introduced by the upgrade, and it shouldn't really be called Zoom Notes. It's yeah. I've stalled a little bit because they're naming. So that shouldn't be called Zoom Notes. That's recent participants. So I'll show you what happens, and as we're doing the demo, we can see what actually it's doing there. I think. So let's go back. So if I go back to the Zoom settings, So now I can say my webinar is webinar, my meeting is meeting ID, and my account ID is from there. So that's all good, and my base URL is set correctly. All right, so all my settings have changed, and there's someone at the door. So I will have to pause for a second. Sorry about that. So I am now back. I just realised my camera is not even showing up there. So I'm not sure what's happened there. Let's put that back. Okie doke. So where were we? Yeah, so I've got everything connected and the Zoom account is connected correctly. I've set all my fields, so I'm good. So I've got the account ID. Right, okay. So now if I go back to my events, I need to just make sure I configure my Zoom event. I've got to reconfigure it in effect to make sure that my settings are right. So before I didn't have an account ID field, right? So I need to make sure I pick it. And now I've picked it, it's checking that that Zoom meeting ID is for that account. So it's all good and it's set correctly. That will make this read-only, and to stop people accidentally changing it and putting in some extra characters and things like that. So to avoid that happening, we're going to make that read-only because it's driven by this select box anyway. So that all looks fine. So I'll just save that. Okie doke. So we are all connected now. So now I'm effectively at the state where I would have been prior to the update, i.e. my my Zoom event in Civi is connected to my Zoom event in Zoom. So I've got my I had it as previous meetings. So I had it connected to that one actually. So that's the meeting ID. Right. So that's all good. So now, you know, obviously if I registered and stuff, the information will come through to the test meeting, and I can see from the registrants who was on it. Yeah. So it's all good and would be working fine, exactly as it was before. So if we just go to the README, so sorry I'm flipping around a little bit on the screens. So I'm going back to the README of the Zoom extension. So the areas we want to look at right now, this is all fine. We covered all this in episode 4. We covered the rules, so that's how participants are sent over to Zoom, and we've done the configuration event. I've got all that. So what we're looking at today are these last sections here. So again, we're in the process of rewording this a little bit. It's a little bit of not necessarily clear English. So what I'm going to do is just explain what these are. So this first scheduled job is if you want the participant status in Civi to get updated from their attendance in Zoom, then this is the scheduled job you need to configure. So if you've got things like CPD, online learning, where event attendance is quite important, or knowing that attendance occurred is important, then you would use this setting, this scheduled job, to pull that information into CiviCRM. So if there's a participant with that email address in both Zoom and in Civi, then it will update them with the participant status from Zoom. So Zoom knows if someone attended or didn't attend, and we can then pull that in. So if they didn't attend, then there'll be a no-show in Civi. If they attended, they'll get updated to attended. There's some parameters in here which we'll go through when we set it up. As I said, I won't be able to show this working because I haven't quite got the event set up in the way that it seems to reflect correctly. But I know of production sites that have this running, and they're running fine. They're updating correctly. So if you did want to see exactly how it works, I can always set up another session that has all the relevant events set up and has a scenario that will pull into Civi. But again, like with some of this stuff, you just have to trust that it is working and just monitor it as you're going through your event cycle. So the second job, this is a new one that we've added, and as I said, as a result of Digital 10's requirement. So this, let's just make this a bit bigger. So this job, what it does is it allows you to email recent participants, and that's what the word recent means is kind of configurable to email addresses that you supply. So as I said right at the beginning, from Zoom, it only seems to have limited control or settings based on your role within the event. So you as a host can set it up to email yourself or someone, but there's no kind of overarching do this when registrations come in. So this job will look at any event that is active, and it will look at a parameter to work out how far back it should go in terms of time, and then it will report out participants for that event. So if I said it, I'll go through some examples. Actually, there's no point talking about it, but I'll go through some examples of how I might set this up, how I might set up my schedule reminder. It also creates a message template. So if I just go back, so if I go to message templates, so this message template here is the one it creates, and at the moment it just shows the event title. So there's a couple of tokens in there, but I could put in there Zoom, for instance, into the body of that email as well. And we're also gonna make sure that this is a bit more non-machine friendly, so i.e. human readable, so that when you're looking at the templates, it doesn't seem odd, because right now it seems a bit odd. So that's a work in progress as well, but at the moment it will use that template to decide what to send out and what it should look like. Okay, so let's set those two jobs up. So the way I do scheduled jobs, so in Civi, scheduled jobs are effectively automated tasks that run in the background, and I get some control over how often they run and what parameters I pass to them. So I could have the same job in here more than once. I might have the same call to rebuild. No, that's probably not a good example, but I might have a call to this. Where's the thing one? Well, let's say I might have the rebuild smart group cache once a day for limited to 10 groups, and then once a week without any limit to rebuild everything, for instance, as an example. So I could have the same job in twice with two different sets of parameters in there. Just so you're aware, because some people get a bit confused by that. So each one of these is an instance of a automated background task. So what I'm going to do is create a new one, and I'm creating this one for the Zoom attendance. So let's read this. So once you've created a Zoom event, you need to create a scheduled job for that event. Well, I don't need to, but I could. The API entity should be Zoom event. So let's go back in here. So the API entity is this API call, and the API call is two sections. So it's the entity and then the action. So the entity we want is Zoom. I was actually typing in entity there. So I want Zoom event and the action should be Zoom body. So that's the attendance. So I'm gonna need to name this schedule job. So I'll say okay, and I'll make that every day. Don't need it necessarily any sooner than that. I could schedule it to start, say, tomorrow at so the first run will be tomorrow at 4 a.m. So our parameters. So it says there's only one parameter, and that is days. So this is what, just reading this, I'm trying to make sense of the English. This will be used, the events using the event's end date. So I think this means it's using the number of days since the event ended. So from the current date. So if I put 10 days, it's any events that ended in the last 10 days will get processed. I think that's what it's trying to say. So let's put that in. So days, I'm going to say it's 10 just for argument's sake, because obviously we don't want to keep going back to Zoom for all events. You kind of want to you want to control it a little bit and let it process, so that it's not processing all events all the time, right? And that could be done differently, right? So if I was rewriting this, I might say I'll keep a track of all the events that I've already done, and I won't reprocess them. But there could be a situation where I've got an event and they're kind of drop-ins, and there's a few people that came in a bit late, came in for later than when their session should have done. So in that scenario, it might be valid that it's an ended event that gets processed more than once. But these are all the kind of decisions that make IT and CRM systems complicated, right? So for this is just saying I'm going to do every event in the last 10 days, and every day I'm going to process all of them. So if there are changes, those changes will get reflected back into Civi straight, as part of that run. So cool. So have I got anyone? I think there's a couple of people. So let's try it. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to execute it. So did something. Don't know what. Let's have a look. Didn't change those. I think the event hasn't attended. Yeah, that hasn't. Still got a future end date. So I'm going to make this. Let's make this ended on the 11th. Okay, I'm trying to make the setup such that the schedule job thinks it should have picked up this event. And this is what I was saying before. It's not straightforward, because I'm doing it now real time, trying to pretend this stuff happened in the past, and not all systems kind of allow that. So I don't know if Zoom's gonna let me play that game. Right, it looked like it did something there. So look. And nah, didn't make any difference. So that is supposed to work, and I'm sure it would if I gave this a couple of days and tried it for real events. Like I said, I am aware of production implementations of this where it is doing what it's supposed to do. So so my assumption would be it works, unless people shout and say it doesn't. Again, the issue queue on the NCM Zoom doesn't have anything about that. Maybe people aren't using it because they're not aware of it, but it doesn't have any issues around status updates for participation. So let's assume that's all good. So the other one that we were looking at is this one. So emailing out recent participants. So for that, I need to open up my event again. So let's go back there. So I am going to make that. Let's make it Monday. Let's make it, and let's set up a new scheduled job. So yeah, I couldn't really think of a good name for it, because what we're effectively doing is creating a Civi distribution email for Zoom participants. So you can name it a million different ways, but that's, I think, for me, that's what makes sense. It's internal. It's the because the confusing things. It could sound like an email you're sending out to participants, but you're not. This is purely internal. It's not going to go out to anyone. It's not going to go out to any participants as such. So, let's go back to instructions. So what should I be doing? So Zoom event and get Zoom registrants. Quality stuff. And what parameters have I got? So minutes. So a number of minutes that I should. So as I'm joining, yeah, probably don't want that. So I'm going to set it every hour. So this job is going to check Zoom every hour. This is saying how far back should I go. So I'm going to say go back 65 minutes, just in case there was, it was running for a bit of time and it's been over an hour since someone registered. I'd rather have someone in the same email twice than miss them altogether. So okay, so I've got that, and then the other parameter, email address. So I know that should be. So again, there's a bit missing out of the instructions. So I know the parameter should be called 2 emails. Again, we will probably tie this up a little bit and make sure it's comma separated list, so you can have multiple recipients in there. I'm going to leave this blank, but again, I could schedule that to go out, but whatever the first run whenever I want, but it's going to run every hour anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. What you can use this for, and what we do sometimes, is if we're testing and we're trying stuff out and we want to fire the jobs, once we're happy, then we might put the next schedule back to on the hour, so we know at 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 these jobs run, because otherwise they go out at odd times, so they might go at 12:35, 11:35, 1:35, things like that. And that's not always consistent. So if they're on the hour, sometimes that's easier for users to know when they're going to get these emails or when they should come out. Okay, so let's save that. So that's my Zoom one there. So I think, let's try it, see what happens. Might execute that now. Oh, not happy about something. Did an email go out? So I have got Mailtrap set up. No, doesn't look like an email came out. Just 1 second, let me just chat to someone. Just get this. It looks like something went wrong there, so maybe I've got the thing wrong, or maybe it's kind of half a release or something that's gone in. But 2 emails. it's just 2 minutes. I'm just finding out. So like I say, I'm not kind of trying to show this working. What we're trying to do in these sessions is do exactly what you guys as users would be doing, and how you might try it, and what struggles you might face. So I am facing what to email. All right, so I shouldn't have called it to emails. Let's try that again. All right, so still complaining about something. Oh, no, it's changed it to emails. No. Anyway, doesn't seem to like it, but if you set it up like that, it should work. Not with to email. It should be to emails. But I'll make sure that those instructions all go back into the extension. So obviously Zoom has been one of the most popular tools in the whole new COVID era. And trying to get information from Civi to Zoom has kind of been working, and is quite a well-used extension now. With information coming back from Zoom, there's potential to do a lot more than what's happening at the moment. So if you are interested in seeing more features, do jump on and raise issues against the GitHub repo. We are looking to extend it a little bit more to do more around notifications and updates and things like that. So at the moment it's a one-way push, but there's no updates of information that go over or anything like that. But the potential is there to do all that stuff. And we're also looking at one of the things we've been looking at is different ways to contact people during the COVID era. So I think that's all I've got, to be honest, on this one at the moment. Sorry we couldn't actually show it. It's a tricky one. There's a lot of different moving parts because of the Zoom internal kind of IDs and its framework around what it thinks is an active event and what isn't. So even though it's showing as a previous event up here, is it an ended event? Yeah, I don't know. It's still sort of saying, it's still allowing me to start that. That's not what I wanted. So if I go into it, it's still letting me start it. So there's a bit of weirdness, but I know that clients, when they use it, events are ended and those then trigger off and do things and make sure that Civi is updated with information. Just on my demo, because I'm doing it today and trying to make things work in the past, in the future, it's all kind of a bit wobbly. But hopefully this gives you enough of an insight to know what to set up. And how to set the scheduled jobs up and to make sure that they are working as they should do. And if you need any more help on it, or if you've got any questions or concerns, do raise them on GitHub. If you've got any particular things that you'd like to see us do during these CiviCRM TV sessions, they are, obviously we're doing this for the community, and we're trying to keep people informed of what things are out there that can help them in terms of users and features of Civi, but it's really difficult to do if there's kind of no interaction with the community. So if we can try and update ideas.civicrm.tv, the domain might change soon, by the way, just as a side note. But if we can update that with some ideas and what you'd like to see, then it will help us make sure that we're staying on track in terms of giving you guys what you need to get the most out of your Civi. So I'm going to leave it there. My dog has thankfully, which way am I going? That way. Where is he? He's gone to sleep. So that's a really good thing. And yeah, it is Friday the 13th. I really wasn't expecting anything to work at all. So even the fact that I've got this far is a win in my books. So we'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time. What's on CiviCRM.tv? Let's have a look. Just go back to Let's see what. So we've got upgrading up there. I will do most wanted. We've done Civi rules, so we've got upgrading CiviCRM. Upgrading is quite tricky. Does need a few steps. There's no single click, but we can do a demo on that. And then we've got web forms. So with web forms, Karen and these guys in Canada have done some great work on Drupal 8 and web forms, and we might present that out differently, and try and integrate, connect with them to help us to show how these systems work, so that we're trying to get the community involved in the whole process and not just be like Veda showing stuff. So I might reach out to them and get them to do a Drupal web forms for CiviCRM as a kind of co-hosted event. And then we've got some others. So we've got the Zoom one obviously down there. We're going to add another one for this, and then there's some others down here. So you can just go in and add your suggestions into the ideas box, and then we'll see how many people take that up, and then we can schedule it in and get some episodes out. All right, that's enough of me waffling on. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you're enjoying the sessions, and see you guys in a couple of weeks. Bye.